I'm going to be precise about what future means. And I time, number of years from now. I should return this keyboard, but I'm going to have to deal with it for this week. Number of years from now. Or there's something wrong with my Bluetooth. I don't know. When you will receive cash. And this could be non-integer. We'll just make it general enough. And we're going to have one last argument, ifrec. We're going to make this optional. If omitted, it is set to 1. Sometimes, if it's already 1, you don't want to write it. You just leave it blank. We have a way of letting Excel know that that is an optional argument. You always put the optional arguments to the end. This is number of times you compound in a year. For example, let's start with a simple example. You borrow $100 from your credit card, okay? Credit cards do daily compounding. Let's say they charge you 18% APR. That means every day they're going to charge you 18% divided by 365 as interest. They're going to apply interest for that day, for the next day, balance on which interest is going to be charged is going to be the new amount. Okay. So if it's monthly, that number is going to be 12, daily 365, quarterly 4, and so on and so forth. All right. Now let's go back to VBA. Whenever you're going to write code for a function, you start with the keyword function. That means whatever we're going to do is a function. What a function is, something that's invoked, it actually returns a value. Whoever has called that function. There is another type of codes that we're going to do at some point. That's called a sub. Sub is short for subroutine. They only perform a certain task. Okay, they don't return anything to the worksheet. You have to give it a name. I'm going to call this present single. That's the name of the function. It has to be a contiguous set of characters. You can't leave spaces, but you can have underscores and other kind of connectors. And it has arguments, or the inputs, right? Our first input is irate. Again, you don't have to call it irate, call it whatever you want, but this kind of helps me remember what things are. Next thing I'm going to write is an optional thing to do, but it's a good programming practice to type your inputs and outputs, which means what kind of data. And this is going to be double. Double is short for a double precision real number. Basically, it's going to be accurate up to about 15 significant digits. What was my second one? iCache. Actually, I want to write iCache to the beginning. You can put it in any order you want, but you need to remember that order because you're going to call this function in that order. iTime as double. And the last argument is ifrec. That's optional, okay? ifrec as double, but since it's optional, I'm gonna say if it's omitted, make it 1. Close the parentheses and say as double. That's the data type of what's gonna be returned. It's basically a double precision number. If I made the font a little bit smaller, you could see the whole thing. Let me see how it's, let's see, 11. Can you guys see all that clearly? You guys have better eyes than I do. I don't think I could have seen it from there. As you may have noticed, as soon as I finished with the top line, it automatically added a line that says end function. So all the code that I'm going to write in between those two belongs to that function. Now, in this case, what we're going to do is simple, but I'm going to create some intermediary stuff. They're also called local variables. You declare them using the statement dim, okay? I'm going to call that p rate as double, dim, and Perry as double. Oh, by the way, you can always write comments. Any line that starts with a single quote is a line that VBA will ignore because those are comments. So I'm going to write a simple thing. This function calculates present value of a single cash flow in the future. You could even write more descriptions. You could write comments about what each argument is. It's always a good programming practice because somebody may take this and they may not know what you're doing. Or, 1 year from now, you want to change something. You said, okay, this is what I was doing over here. It's kind of a note that you leave for yourself for later. But in this specific problem, it's relatively simple. So let me write a comment here that says, let us declare the so-called local variables. These variables are not going to be known outside of this function, okay? And those names are, they have, you can use the same kind of names in another function, doesn't matter. It's local to this function, so even if there is a name conflict, the local one takes over. Now, the reason I created those calculate the period interest rate and number of periods. And let's kind of remind ourselves that I rate is an APR rate, so-called annual percentage rate. The period rate, if ifrec is 12, you take that interest rate divided by 12. So P rate is equal to I rate divided by I frec, right? If you haven't done any programming of any sort before, let me kind of tell you what internally that statement means, okay? There's a place in computer's memory that I've tagged as irate, okay? And there is another one called ifrec. This says go to those places that are tagged at irate and ifrec, grab their value, okay? Divide the value of irate by ifrec, and take the result, go to the place that was tagged prate, place that result into that memory spot. That's what that statement means. That equal is not an equality operator. It's called an assignment operator. Technically speaking, that should read as P rate becomes equal to I rate divided by I frec. This is not making a statement that P rate has to equal those two. Similarly, I'm going to have N peri, the number of periods, is I time times I frec. Now I reduced everything to standard periodic format. We know how to do it. Present value of $1 is 1 divided by 1 plus period rate raised to the power number of periods.